I trained in medical billing, I studied for and passed the CPC exam, and I did it without a college degree and without prior healthcare experience, and actually I did it for free as well, but how is what I will be discussing in today's video. I'm Victoria Mole. I'm a medical coder, auditor, educator, and content creator, and on my channel I provide tips, tricks, and tutorials to help you be successful in a medical coding career. Today I want to talk to you though about how I became a medical coder. Now this video really is more about my journey on how I became a medical coder. It's not necessarily a playbook on how you can become a medical coder for free. While I do think my particular journey is one that could be replicated, it's probably not as easy to do so. There are certainly opportunities out there, but it's not something that you'll probably be able to Google search and find quickly and easily. And the way I did it was kind of traditional at the time, but might not necessarily fit what is going on right now in this era of medical billing and coding. First and foremost, my job history prior to starting in medical billing and coding was mostly in retail and customer service. I had a job working at the customer service department of Walmart, and then I worked in the online shopping department for a department store that's more sort of regional in the northeastern United States area. But I really wanted something more specialized and a little bit more secure, so I started researching, and based off of some information that I found, as well as some very strong recommendations from family and friends, I decided to get into medical billing and coding. Now, I had previously attempted to go to college for web design. I went to Reading Community College for the web design program, but a few classes short of graduating, I pulled out. I was just having some mental health issues and kind of gotten myself straightened out from that, and decided I liked web design more as a hobby than a future career. So I was familiar with that school already, and my thought process was, well, I'll go for a medical secretary associate's degree. I'll be able to transfer some of my credits over, and then I won't have to take everything, and it involves some billing and coding. But when I got to the admissions office, they told me that they actually have a career institute or a career training program in a different building. So while it doesn't grant you a college degree, it does train you for a particular job, and you get like a certificate of completion for the training that's from the college, but it's not a college degree. To this date, I have done extremely well in this field and still do not have a college degree. I toy with the idea sometimes of doing it, but I haven't gone back for it yet. Now, I originally applied to take classes on a part-time basis because I just didn't have the money to fund full-time, but what actually wound up happening was while I was there, they had me apply for some different grants, and I wound up getting granted a workforce improvement grant. I'm not sure if that was from the state of Pennsylvania. I think it was. I can't find any of the paperwork of exactly what it was, but because of my financial need at the time, I was past the age where my parents' income came into play for that, and I was on my own and didn't have a job. So they were able to get me a workforce improvement grant, which completely covered the cost of my training. So that first term that I took part-time, I actually was able to get reimbursed for that, and then the rest of my stuff was completely paid for. And this was, I don't want to say accelerated, but it was a very rapid pace. Like I think classes were only 6 weeks or something at a time. And this was back in like 2007, so it was prior to most organizations having online training. Colleges didn't do online training back then. There was maybe a couple. There was like University of Phoenix and DeVry that maybe had some online courses. We didn't do that as much back then. So I went and trained in person, I think Monday through Thursday, sometimes on Fridays, in person in the Training Institute for Medical Billing. None of my prior college credits transferred over because they didn't kind of work that way. So I did have to repeat a couple of things that maybe I had already taken, like keyboarding. But the nice thing about some of these training programs that are more career centric is you don't have to do like the degree stuff that they require you to do to fit into this like box that where they can get FAFSAs and all that kind of stuff. So they didn't make us take psychology or sociology or art programs or anything like that. Everything was very healthcare or office or medical coding adjacent. In fact, because Reading, Pennsylvania is a kind of impoverished area, we didn't even have, I think, a lot of books for the programs that I took. I honestly don't even remember having a medical terminology book. I remember the nurse coming in and she would write a bunch of terms on the board and like explain what they were and make us memorize them and write them down and write down the definitions. And then the next day she would quiz us on them and then make us write down more definitions. And I wasn't actually even required to purchase a coding book, even though I had some coding classes. What they did was they had some older books that were donated and they were on a shelf in the back of the classroom, and we had to only use them while we were in the classroom to practice, because the training that I went through was a little bit more billing centric. It wasn't necessarily a like CPC or certified professional coder preparation course. It wasn't intended for that. It was just sort of intended to get you some kind of job in billing departments or revenue cycle. If I had to redo it today, I would probably sign up for a program like Preppy. That's the one that I partner with. And what they do is they have a completely online, like at your own pace program, and it does help you prepare for certifications like the CPC. And they have certain things that you don't see in a lot of other programs, like externships, and you can, depending on your payment program, get like a laptop included. So it is a really great program. If you want to find out more about that, though, I'm not going to talk too much about it. Head to medicalcodingmasterclass.com, and that'll tell you everything about like how to get started in a career in medical billing and coding, and like about the Preppy program. I'll make sure I link it in the video description so that you can find it real easy when you're done with this video and head over there. Although speaking of externships, part of my training program was I did have to take an internship. I wound up at the billing department for what was called at the time the Reading Hospital Medical Group. I think it's all part of Tower Health now. And this was really at the peak of private practices getting bought up by these large healthcare organizations because EMRs were being forced onto them. They couldn't afford all this overhead, and they had to do something to afford all of these EMR technologies and all these liabilities that were building up. So they wound up signing on with these larger healthcare institutions so they could kind of share resources. So they really needed a lot of people in the billing department, so I was hired right off of my internship. I did charge entry, so essentially like the doctors and the other practitioners working in the office would have like a sheet of all of their common services, and they would have the codes attached to them, and they would just circle at the end of the visit what the patient had and what diagnoses and procedures and stuff, and it would all get scanned into a scanner, and then I would get the download of the scans, and I would just type the numbers into the billing system. But because the organization was growing, they anticipated that they would need some more medical coders. They only had really one certified coder. So what they did is they said, hey, we're going to bring in a certified coding instructor. You can take classes with them over the next few months to train for the CPC exam. And if you pass it, we will reimburse you the entire cost that you paid for these classes. So the package included the books, materials, the teaching time, and the exam fee. So after I was working all day, on certain days would go to train for the CPC exam. And again, this was like in-person training. So everything I had done at this point was at 100% in person, even though honestly, I'd wanted to get into medical billing and coding so I could work remotely, which eventually I did. I think the training program was only maybe like 3 months because it was kind of intended for people who are already working in healthcare. And thankfully I passed my CPC exam on the first round, and I was reimbursed entirely then for the training program from my employer. Those opportunities are still out there. It's just hard to pinpoint, oh yeah, you can definitely do it with these organizations. Now, once I got my CPC, that doesn't mean like I immediately became a medical coder. I was a certified coder, but my position title was still charge entry. What happened though was I was able to get a second job shortly after teaching medical coding in the evenings at a local tech school. Eventually my day job, I switched that as well. I went to a different organization into their accounts receivable department. And then after about 6 or 7 months, I transferred to my first coding role. So it actually took me a couple of years to make the leap from billing to coding. Now that was pretty much the end of me getting any free or paid for training from my employers or through state grants, with the exception of, I think I was originally trained on ICD-9 coding, and then we switched over to ICD-10, and I think my employer did pay for my ICD-9 to 10 training. But since then, I've gotten so many different certifications from different organizations, and I did have to pay out of pocket for all of the training and the certification. Did do is it elevated my career. So I got certified in plastic surgery coding, I got certified in medical auditing, and I started getting more involved with my organization, publishing articles and things. So once I had those all built up, that was able to then transition to another organization as a senior medical coder, which then led into a supervisor of medical coding role, and I actually supervised the auditing and education team there. Management was not my bag, so I went to another organization and just did audits and education on my own, and now I work independently, doing consulting, doing education, doing content creation. It's been a pretty robust career. I was able to get started very quickly, but until I kind of built that momentum and got to a more profitable place, it took a little while. Although I think with the training programs that are out there now, it probably wouldn't take as long. Honestly, I've had great flexibility. I've really enjoyed working in medical billing and coding. If you think this might be a career you're interested in, I actually have an entire playlist that you can check out of things about medical billing and coding, how to get started in this career, you can check it out here. But I would actually really recommend medicalcodingmasterclass.com because it's like the down and dirty concentrated version, and then tells you about the training program that I recommend. So that's a good one to check out too. I hope you enjoyed my story about how I became a medical coder. If you have questions, definitely leave them for me in the comments. Otherwise, make sure you subscribe because I have lots of great helpful tips for you, and I will see you guys in the next video. And until then, just keep on coding on.